Hello, everyone. Thanks for jumping on. This is BNB Investing, sponsored by REI USA. It's the first Tuesday of every month. These meetings are typically recorded, so you can go back onto the REI USA platform and not only view this particular meeting, but the ones that we've had in the past as well, just as a reference. And so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Rich Munroe. I am with Diamond Edge Properties. We specialize and have a core focus on short-term rentals and Airbnbs. We've got listings in the Atlanta metro market, and we've just recently, earlier this year, expanded into the Tampa, Florida market with about 11 listings down there. We've got close to 20 listings in Atlanta, and we're continuing to grow. BNB Investing Group is something that we specialize talking about investing in Airbnbs, short-term rentals, and look at all the different business integrations and attributes that help this business be scalable. And I've invited my friend Mark Welch today from Cram Capital. Mark and I, he's participated in some of our previous panels before that we've done that are specific to short-term rentals, and he's also sponsored a couple of our workshops that we've done, short-term rentals 101. And so Mark and I have kind of worked together over the last several years for a while, and I thought it would be good for everybody to kind of understand the differences and some of the opportunities that are available to us as investors in the short-term rental space, as some of these lenders and some of these lending options start recognizing the fact that short-term rentals are definitely more lucrative than a traditional rental, and kind of all the differences that are involved and some of the advantages as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mark, let him do a brief introduction and his presentation, and then we'll do some Q&A towards the end of the presentation. So thanks for coming, Mark. If you want to jump on.
Hey, thanks, Rich. Happy Tuesday to everyone. I am Mark Welch with Cram Capital Group. We are a nationwide commercial mortgage brokerage. We lend on traditional commercial properties, multifamily, we do bridge, and in the residential space, we focus a lot on short-term rental, better known to most people as Airbnb. We probably do about $15 million a month in loan origination in that space. We're trying to grow it even, larger than it is right now. So I was saying to Rich, it's one of the hottest investment strategies going on in the residential real estate space as we speak. And one of the reasons why, your income could be 3 to 4 times greater than market rent. So great ROI if you're buying the right property in the right market. So what I wanted to cover today is just give you an overview of, from the standpoint from a lender, what we see from my side of the table. Cram Capital Group, if you can see my screen, we make Airbnb financing simple. We use the term Airbnb on our website because there's a very user-friendly name in the short-term rental space. Most people say I have an Airbnb, but that applies to vacation rentals, VRBO, bookings.com, whichever platform you're advertising or marketing your property on. If the deal makes sense and meet the guidelines of our investors, we can put the deal together, get you to the closing table in 30 to 35 days. Max LTV in most cases will be 80% of the purchase price. Normally in the business, on the financing end, it's going to be appraised value or contract price, whichever one is lower. So as an investor, you always want to go with the lower cost. You have the option of a 30-year fix. Let me open this up. I can show you guys some of the guidelines here. Short-term rental program. So the purpose of a short-term rental program is for real estate investors who are looking for long-term investment, residual income, if you want to do it long-term or short-term. When I say, I'm sorry, if you want to do it full-time or part-time, because many people still work at 9 to 5 jobs, and then you want to supplement your income, prepare for your retirement, or you want to increase your lifestyle, you like to go on vacation, you like for your kids to go to the final schools, you like to wear the final clothes, drive the best looking cars. So it all depends on what your motivation is in getting into the investment space. Our job at Crime Capital is to help you realize your goals by getting you the funds needed to get to the next level in your investment path. The type of properties that fall under the umbrella: single family, condos, townhomes, duplex, triplex, which are 3 units, 4-unit properties. Log cabin without the logs. We can finance cabins without the log. So if you need to know more information about that, let's talk offline. I don't have condo tails on here, but they're slowly coming back to the market at 70% LTV, and it'll be on a case-by-case basis. And for those who do not know what a condo tail is, the best way to describe it: if you live in Atlanta and you've been over to Atlantic Station, there's a hotel called the 12. So a condo tail is where you have condos where you have primary residence, and you also rent out rooms similar to short-term rentals as a hotel. And there's always going to be a receptionist desk in the lobby of a condo tail. So you don't see a lot of them like in Atlanta, but I've received several requests in South Carolina, primarily in the Charleston area, and in Hawaii. There are a lot of condo tails in Hawaii. So our platform, we broker loans nationwide. Currently, we have several loans that we're working on in Alaska. We have done loans in Hawaii. We have loans we're currently working in Pennsylvania, New York, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Tennessee is a very interesting market. Up in the hills, Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, great short-term rental, vacation rental market. Great. You're looking at properties bringing in $1,500 to $3,000 a night. Great area. You think in the hills, no one would pay $2 million for a property, but great area for short-term rentals. Again, max loan to value is 80%. Now I can do 85%, and it's restricted to certain states. And it's only for single family, no condominiums, no townhomes, no multi-units, no duplex, no triplex, no quadruplex. So again, if you want to speak on that, we can talk about it later or at a different time. Loan amounts from $200K to $3 million. You have loan terms are normally, you have 5-year terms, you have a 5-1 ARM, 7-1 ARM, and you also have you have 30-year fixed. Most investors that we work with like the 30-year fixed, 30-year amortization product, because they're looking to hold on to these assets long term. The purpose of investing is for the cash flow, the residual income that they can develop over time. So a couple of different strategies that I see and how we have structured deals. Many, you guys probably have heard of the term BRRRR: buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and repeat. And that's a great strategy when you're doing short-term rental investing or any type of long-term rental investing. Because normally if you put in 20% down, that is a nice chunk of capital to infuse into an investment. And normally you have to wait several years before you break even or you receive your return on investment from that initial chunk that you're putting down. So if you buy a property, say for $100,000 and you put $50K in renovation, and on the short-term platform, that property will bring in $6,000 per month. And now the ARV on that property is currently $200,000. And so if you come in, you do a renovation loan, then you refinance at 75% cash out. So now you have a new loan amount of $150,000. Say the mortgage on that property, say you have high taxes and insurance. Your property is located in South Florida on Miami Beach. So your taxes are probably, say, $4,000, insurance is $6,000. So say your monthly payment is $2,000. And now you renovated the property, you refinanced it, you pulled out your initial down payment and closing costs, And now you're bringing in, your debt on paper is $2,000, and you're bringing in $6,000 a month on the short-term rental platform. Now you repeat that process again, but each time you repeat it, you increase your liquidity and you increase your income. The other way I've seen investors approach it, they may have sold a property and the monies was transferred over into a 1031 exchange. And many times when you're starting out in investment, you make your purchases in your personal name and not in the name of the entity. Most of the loans, all of the loans that we originate or we arrange are done in the name of the business and not in your personal name, because we do not look at your personal income. We only focus on your the income from the property, either the actual income or the proposed income. So when you're doing I've seen where a person, their property that they sold that went into, with proceeds went into the 1031 exchange, was in their personal name. So now they had to create an entity to purchase the new property. So they had to consult with the fiduciary for the 1031, and also consult with their CPA to make sure it's structured right so they can get the proper tax benefit of going the 1031 exchange route. I've closed structured loans where there have been 12 individuals on one entity. So you can be a single purpose entity, you can be a multi-member entity. It just depends. I've structured loans where one individual has the credit, the other individual has the cash. So one person may have an 800 credit score or a 700 credit score. The other party may have a 450 credit score, but they're the ones with the cash. So there are different ways to get the deals done. It all depends on the parties that are participating in the transaction. And when you're dealing with a lender, myself or anyone else, to be totally transparent about your financial situation, because the further you go into the deal, certain things will be revealed. And when we're investing, time is money. And on our side, from a realtor, if you're dealing with a realtor, you're dealing with a loan officer, whoever you're dealing with, we all work on commission. So not being transparent is wasting time, and no one get a reward at the end of the day unless the deal closes, in most cases. Another trend in the marketplace that some investors I see are doing, when you're looking at properties, if you can acquire a property at market rent. So market rent is when you put a tenant in the property traditionally for 12 months, have a 12-month lease. When you're doing short-term rental, you don't have a lease. So, you're basically running a hybrid hotel per se. So if you can qualify the property, can get financing, meet debt service coverage based on market rent. So now what that does for you, if there is a shift in the market, there's a downswing in the marketplace, you're well leveraged. So if you had to go back to putting regular tenants, say you're in a community where for some reason the city council voted, we no longer want short-term rentals within our municipalities. So coming in qualifying at market rent at a lower, you're on paper, you're committed to a lower monthly payment, and there's a shift in the market. Now you can go back to a traditional renter and still turn a profit. But if you're on the short-term rental platform, say again, on paper, $2,000 will cover your debt service, but you can bring in $6,000 to $8,000, great return. But if there's a shift, you can sleep better at night knowing that $2,000 will cover your debt service and put a profit in your pocket. And for those, debt service coverage is a commercial way of calculating the income and expenses of an investment. So the formula is kind of, a lack of a better word, it's kind of watered down for short-term rental when you're dealing with 1 through 4 units. Because on the residential side, there are other more in-depth income and expenses that are looked at. For the sake of short-term rental, the easiest way we do it, the way it's done, you take your annual income. So say if your property is bringing in $10,000 per month, that's $120,000 a year. And then if your mortgage payment is $5,000, say your mortgage payment, we are principal, taxes, interest, and principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And if you have an association, HOA, so it's PITIA, the A is for association fees. So say that amount comes to 60, your PITIA comes to 60,000 a year. So what you do, you divide the 60,000 into the 120. So that gives you 2.0 would be your debt service coverage. Normally when we're looking at it from an underwriting standpoint, we can look at it from at 1.15 or 1.10 or greater. So, and what that's telling you is that, say, hey, at 1.10, you're breaking even. So if you're at 1.10, it's telling you, okay, after I've paid all of my operating expenses and my debt service. Your debt service, normally when you're doing on a commercial loan, debt service is your annual mortgage payment. So on a traditional commercial loan, multifamily, office, retail, warehouse, industrial, debt service is not a part of your operating expense. So it's separate from your operating expense. But for the sake of short-term rental, it's all grouped in. It's a hybrid way of looking at it. So, but it's a great way to look at it because many of the expenses that you incur from a commercial standpoint, you don't incur on the residential side. Now, and another, I forgot to mention this, we also have access to an interest-only product. So it's actually a 40-year loan, but it's broken down into 3 parts. So it comes as a 5/1 arm and a 7/1 arm, but it's a 10-year interest only. So how that works, say your interest rate is 5%. So for the first 5 years or for the first 7 years, it's locked at 5%. From year 5 through 10 or year 7 through 10, it becomes an adjustable rate mortgage. At year 11, it becomes a 30-year fix from there. So that's why, so the first 10 years is a interest-only product. And then from year 11 on, it becomes a fixed rate product. So that product is normally used by investors who are cash flow focused, and they're not planning to hold on to the property long term. So if your strategy, you feel that you're in a hot market and you say, hey, based on my projections, there will be a downswing in the market in 6 years or 6 years. So say I'm gonna do a 5/1 arm, I will hold it for 5 years on the interest only, and then I would get rid of the property in year 6. It comes with a 3-year prepay, so it's a win-win situation for me. Or you feel that in 8 years, there may be a switch, there may be a shift in the marketplace, so I will go to the 7/1 arm. So it all depends on the strategy of the investor. Lending per se is based on the strategy of the party who is acquiring the property or the party who already owns the property when you're doing the refinance. And our job on my side of the table is to make sure we align you with the best product that'll help you accomplish what you're trying to get done. Rich, was that clear?
Yes, Mark, very clear.
Okay. Do you have any questions as far as the things that I mentioned? Oh, I forgot. Foreign nationals, I'm looking at it in front of me. Foreign nationals are welcome to participate. There is an LTV reduction. And I think it's going to be capped at 70% for foreign nationals.
So the terms for short-term rental income, when you say that you're using the property for income to qualify the loan, you know, in a parallel universe, if you're looking at the same borrower and the same property, are there significant differences in the terms that you can provide, whether it's an SDR or a market rental?
It just depends which capital partner we're going with. Some would, there's an add-on for it being a short-term rental. And then you look at the property, there's an add-on if the property is a condo, and if it's a non-warrantable condo, there's an add-on for that. So especially if it's a non-warrantable condo. So most of the times though, across the board, most of the loans that we originate, there's no add-on for the property being a short-term rental. And what we do, we look at, go to AirDNA, and based on the gross rate that AirDNA advertised. So AirDNA would say, okay, this property in this area have occupancy of 60% or 70% at $500 per night. So we look at it from a standpoint over 30 days, 500 a night, that is 15,000, and normally do a percentage of the gross, not based on not the occupancy that AirDNA is advertising. So we do a percentage of the gross, say 75% of the gross income or 80% of the gross. So you take in a 25 or 20% operating costs out of the gross.
Okay, and that was going to be another question that I had. The when you have the proposed income on a property that you're just acquiring, are you typically using AirDNA to hang your hat, or are there some other platforms that you're using for analytics?
90% of the time it's going to be AirDNA.
Okay, and then you're just haircutting it as a general rule by 25% of gross.
Yeah, say 20% of gross, somewhere in there.
Got it. Okay.
So we haven't had, when it comes to meeting debt service coverage, I have not had a deal that's been killed because of debt service coverage. That has not been an issue, just because of the formula is structured. Now, you know, in the lending space, it's always evolving. So by the fourth quarter, there are going to be some new products coming to the market as pertain to the space that we operate in the short-term rental space. One of the reasons why it's not as aggressive right now, because you know, the investors that are buying the paper after the loan closes, they have to analyze the performance of the paper and see how the investors, those who have the mortgages, how they're performing from a payment standpoint. Once they can assess the risk, and you'll see more players into that space.
Okay, and I see Rachel has a couple of questions here in the chat. Is there a limit to the number of loan products one can obtain with Cram Capital?
No. Well, what type of loan product, before I say that?
Well, I'm assuming if she's had, you know, or if you as the borrower have multiple properties and, you know, let's say you have, is there a limit on the number of loans that you can provide even though you're doing it through a legal entity?
There's not a limit on the number of loans, but normally it would go up to, if we're not doing, we weren't able to do a blanket loan for short-term rentals, but the blanket loan has been taken away from the market. So cannot offer a blanket now, but on the single loans, you can go up to, I think, up to $5 million for one borrower.
Up to $5 million for one borrower, okay. And so if I'm doing higher end luxury properties, the average purchase price might be 2 million. You're potentially looking at doing, you know, only 2 loans.
Yeah, but the borrower is the entity.
So said a different way, you could do a different entity?
You could do it a different entity.
Okay. So while we're on that topic, are there any different requirements for some of the higher loan amounts compared to the lower ones?
No, the requirements are pretty much the same. To get 80%, you need a 720 or better credit score. You need to have 6 months reserves, and reserves are not monies you have to put into an escrow account. So you have to show that you have 6 months PITIA. If there's A is for the association fees, but principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, you have to show you have 6 months of that, plus your closing costs and the down payment. And that's it. There's nothing special for larger loan amounts. We actually like larger loan amounts. One of the reasons why we like larger loan amounts is that you find that those who operate in that space, they have a great system. They have a good system. They have a great operation going. You know, that's what we have found.
Sure. So another question from Rachel, which I think we covered part of this. Do you fund condo tels?
Condo tels on a case-by-case basis at 70% LTV.
Okay. And for those of us that don't recall what the condo hotel, is that the same, what you were describing earlier, where it's a lobby space to check in?
Yeah, so you have the 12 in Atlantic Station is a great example. You have a receptionist desk in the lobby, and you own the unit. You have a hotel and a condo operating simultaneously. So short-term rental.
But I'm potentially I'm just acquiring the condo that's in that building.
That's what you're doing. Or you can rent it. Or you can stay there overnight as a tenant or as a guest.
Got it. Another good question from Rachel. So do you look at other data? When she uses AirDNA, they undervalue her properties by 30%.
Not really. Another way you can do it, if you're disputing AirDNA, you can provide, you can do it the grassroots way. Look at similar properties and features to your property, and say you go onto different platforms and you download the link in an email, and you send us the list and say, okay, these are properties that are in the same zip code vicinity, within a half a mile radius of the subject property, and this is what they're asking per night. Because the link would have their advertising link would have the photos of the property, so now we can compare apples to apples.
So you can, similar to when you do an appraisal, you can kind of give you some more details on the comps and show why the pricing is going to be potentially higher than what you're looking at on the summary analytics.
But now the appraiser does not appraise the property from a short-term rental standpoint. So they would not put short-term rental comparables on the appraisal.
No, right. I was just using that as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. And then obviously, if you've got a property that you're acquiring multiple properties in the same area that you already have a historical track record, you would obviously hang your hat on that short-term rental historical data that you have on similar properties as what you're purchasing, right?
Repeat that for me.
So like, for example,
data.
Yeah. So if I've got, 4 short-term rentals that are in Kirkwood, 4-bedroom houses, and I've been there for 2 years, and I'm buying another property, but I've got historical performance as a short-term rental for those other 4 properties in that neighborhood that I can show actual data of what that history has done, that would be potentially better than what AirDNA shows, just based on our actual experience with it.
Yeah, that would be looked at on a case-by-case basis. I can't say, yeah, that would definitely work. But one thing I would say, the side be on the side of caution, is that you are already getting 3 to 4 times market rent. And if you have to push it even further for that property to qualify, any shift in the marketplace may not leave a smile on your face.
Yeah, right. So I get what you're saying. The spread is big enough already, even after the 25% deduct, that because we're already looking at 2, 3, 4 times the traditional rental amount, there should be enough there anyway.
There should be
DNA
enough.
is undervaluing. Yeah.
Because I've done properties here in Atlanta in Buckhead and in Sandy Springs, there are $2 million, $3 million properties from an appraisal standpoint. One of those properties, we qualified it based on market rent. And the operator, he wanted to do a 5-year, wanted to do a 10-1 interest only because he was going to sell the property in 5 years. So he didn't want a long-term hold, but short-term rental income on the property was $35K. But he was bringing in the market on it was 12.4 per month was market rent, which was more than enough to cover a debt of 1.6.
Got it. So one other question, and we've started looking at some properties with event space and kind of other experiences for the guests. For example, a 20-acre horse farm that provides, riding experience and other activities. Are you able to potentially include other income? And some of the properties that we have, like on large number of acreage, might have like event space to do weddings and other events and things like that. Is that revenue something that can be factored in as well if needed?
No, because when you're dealing with rental real estate, residential 1 through 4, you're looking at the rental income from the property from a residential standpoint. So having events or horse rental or event space for parties, that's not the same. That's more from a commercial standpoint. And when you're looking at a horse farm, I have one here that came across my desk in New York, upstate New York, 10-acre farm. And when I sent it in to get priced out, it's showing up as a agricultural property. So remember, we're in the 1 through 4 space residential. So I've done 10, 13 acres in California in, what's the name of that place? That like spaceships. It's on the way to Palm Springs, Yakima Valley. I'm sorry. I had to think about it. So, but it all depends on the zoning of the property. These loans are only for residential zoning. So when you get commercial or rural or agri, it can be rural, but it cannot be agricultural.
Got it. Back to some of the questions in the chat box. What was the DSCR required again?
1.10 or better.
So basically 10% above?
Yeah, 10% above.
Okay.
And it can be on a case-by-case basis. It can be less, depending if we're doing an interest-only loan.
Okay. Just a separate question: how many short-term rental loans have you put together or originated?
Myself.
Or at Cram Capital in general.
Over 200.
Over 200. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And do you? How recent has it been that you guys have started recognizing? Because I know for a long time a lot of lenders and large finance companies haven't been recognizing the short-term rental revenue. So is that a recent occurrence?
Since 2018, we is when we started going into that space. So we've been in the lending business since 2002 from an experience standpoint. And so we understood how to manipulate the product to get what we needed. So one of the things, you have certain products have certain guidelines, and then you have gray areas within the product in which you can structure a loan to fit that guideline before they even officially say we can do these types of loans. If that makes sense.
Okay. Are you seeing any major competitors in the market?
Oh yeah, dude, there's a lot of people in the market. Host Financial, there's a lot of people in the marketplace. Yeah, so it all boils down to the understanding of the market and how to structure loans. Everyone that's in the market, like say, if I was doing loans for individuals who are looking for a property to raise their family and to settle down, there's so many people that's doing FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. but the loan officers or the lenders who strive are those who understand how to structure loans. If it's a commercial transaction or it's a residential transaction, understanding the need of your client and understanding to put them in a position that's going to make it a win-win for both them, yourself, and all parties involved. So we take pride in understanding the marketplace and understanding how to structure a loan to meet what you're looking for. Because what's good for me may not be good for you. So I don't want you to leave and say, hey, he put me in a bad situation. I don't want that to happen. I want you to be in a good situation so you can tell someone else and we can grow our business based on referral. So we take pride in understanding the marketplace and making sure that our clients are satisfied with the service and the product that we put in. That's very important to us.
All right, and you guys also do rehab loans off the front end too, correct?
Yeah, we do, but we used to be heavy in the rehab space. That space is that space could be a headache space because there are so many newbies in the space. And so now what we try to do, we're aligning ourselves with experienced investors who are looking to scale their business. So when we put them in a line of credit product, and that line of credit is based on their experience and liquidity. So experience, liquidity, and credit. And so most cases you can get 7 times your liquidity, or we can look at how many deals you have done over the past 3 years. Say you have done $5 million in real estate. Now, if you have done $5 million in real estate the past 3 years, that's your track record. So now we can get you in the line for $5 million. So now that line allows you to leverage your position. So it's not like a home equity line of credit where you can spend the money at will. It's more considered a guardian line. So the line is designed for investors who are looking to scale their business. So now you may be doing 3 or 4 loans per month, transactions per month. And with access to additional cash, now you can do 6 or 7 or 8 deals per month. You can become more aggressive in the marketplace.
All right, and so that would act as a traditional line of credit where it's more of a drawdown. You're not putting any additional dollars down, and you can use that line of credit for the rehab as well as the acquisition?
Yeah, you can do it for acquisition or renovation, but the loan is structured the same way if you do a one-off. So say best case scenario, you're qualified at 90% of total cost, 75% of ARV. And you're at 7.5% interest only. That's one of the things people need to focus on when doing fix and flips. I hear people, this happened to me a while back. So on the commercial side, you have a bridge loan that's similar to a fix and flip. It got many of the features are similar. And I had to go outside the box and use a private guy to bring the guy needed $1 million to take down a hotel. And so I had to go to a private person to get the funds. And he's like, Mark, I can do that deal. The guy has good collateral. That's a good deal for us. And he said, that'd be 18%. I was like, good Lord, 18%? Man, you're crazy. I'm like, 18%? And he said, dude, you're getting emotional. I'm like, dude, 18%, that's high. He said, man, it's a 12-month loan. 18% is only 1.5% per month. Like, damn, dude, I didn't think about it like that. Because it's interest only. So if you're getting say you're doing a fix and flip, and someone is giving you 12% on $100,000 to get the loan done, you're only paying a percent per month. And then if you get rid of that property, if you renovate it and sell it in 5 months, you only pay 5% interest. So the cost of money, when you break it down, the cost of money is not as high as you think it is.
Well, I think most investors that scale really understand that you've got a lending partner that you're basically giving part of the profit to, as well as the contracting team. So it's really split 3 ways between the investor, the contractors, and the lender. And so if you understand that concept and look at it from a numbers perspective, I think to your point, the numbers aren't really as aggressive as you think they are.
And another thing too, to know that for the newbies, when you're doing a fix and flip, your the draw that you get to pay your contractor is not for you to pay your mortgage, that debt service.
Right. A lot of private money lenders can be structured that way, but yeah, traditional lenders don't typically want you to do that.
Yeah, it's not for you to, that's strictly for you to pay for the renovation of the property.
Yeah. So let's jump back in on some of the questions here. Rachel again is asking some great questions. What are the biggest pitfalls that you have seen kill the deal?
Right now, appraisals.
Yep. Appraisals. Yeah.
And it's not appraisal from the standpoint value situations. Most values are coming back. What now is that in the space that we operate in, because some loans you have to do an income and expense statement on the appraisal, whereas on a residential property that you're living in, you don't have to take that extra step. So you're seeing appraisals like in Texas, you're looking at 7 to 8 weeks. To I give you an example, we had a property on Lake Travis, I think Lake Travis is out there by Austin, $2.3 million purchase, and the whenever the loan amount exceeds $1 million, we have to get 2 appraisals done from 2 different appraisers. And you go with the lower of the appraisal. That's an industry standard across the board on 1 through 4. When you're dealing with true commercial properties, that does not apply. But you're doing single family, duplex, triplex, quads, townhomes, condos. If it exceeds $1 million, you have to have 2 appraisals done. So one appraiser took so we call it the first. So we have one assignment was accepted. It took them 4 weeks to come out to perform the valuation. And the second one, we couldn't find anyone. I'm talking about went through 3 different AMCs. AMC is the acronym for Appraisal Management Company. So within the lending space, whether you're doing commercial or residential lending, in 2010, they passed the Dodd-Frank rule. Under that Dodd-Frank rules of engagement, loan officers and lenders cannot communicate directly with appraisers. Now, in the private money space, it's a little bit different, but when you're dealing with institutional money, we cannot communicate directly with the appraiser to influence their decision. So you have to go through an intermediary, which is an appraisal management company. And they are the one, they post, you give them the order, they post it on their board, appraisers bid on it. They normally try to come back with the person that has the quickest time and the lowest cost. So both of those things, like I just said, the quickest time or the fastest time and the lowest cost, those are out the window, because I've seen in Florida, in Clearwater, a 3-unit beach house that would normally appraise cost $1,200. Now it's $2,500 to do an appraisal on. So it's just a huge swing in the market when it comes to getting appraisals back on our side in a timely manner.
Got it. So bringing up vacation, like beach properties, have you seen anything that's unique to those types of properties as far as from a lending perspective?
Oh, not really. It's pretty much the same. The prices are higher.
Right.
The prices are higher, much higher. We're doing one now in Panama City where the person bought it for 2.5, and it was. She called me and like said, "I have a referral for you." The person was referred to me from a banking partner, from a bank referral source, and it said, "Hey, I have someone that we can't do the loan, so I know it's something that you guys may be able to do." And when we spoke, she said she had a purchase set up. And as I dug deeper, what the person was trying to do, they purchased the property for 2.5 cash, and they wanted to pull their funds out. And so they were going to sell it to a family member. And I had to explain to them, you're making it more difficult than it actually is.
Yeah.
So I said, what's the purpose of getting the cash? I want to buy two other properties. So showed them how to structure the loan where they didn't have to. They would kind of cut their feet off when they didn't have to. And so we're in the process of getting that one done. It's in Panama City.
Wow. Okay. What are the interest rates on again, I guess there's no huge difference in the interest rates for these types of loans?
Oh, for the larger loans?
Yeah.
Not really. It may be an eighth 2.20 depending on credit. But
so what's the high and the low?
Now most rates with 720 or better, you're trending in the fives.
Okay.
Now when you get to LTV, that's 80%. When you get LTV less than 60, and depending on the loan amount is greater than 300, you can get in the high fours, or mid, like above like 4.625, 4.7, something like that.
Got it. That's still pretty good.
Mm-hmm. That's really, see what I try to tell investors, share with investors, Rich, is that as an investor, when you're looking at purchasing an asset, the cost of money is important, but also look at your return on investment, because if my cost of money is costing me, say we use 7%, and my net return on investment is at 25%, I think I made a damn good investment.
Yeah, for sure.
All day, twice. So you have to look at your return on investment and don't get hung up on the interest rate per se, because this you're making an investment. You're not purchasing a property where you're gonna raise your family and have Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas gatherings. You're buying that property as an income producing mechanism for you. And so your focus would be return on investment. It's like when you watch Shark Tank and a person come up and they say, hey, I give you 5% or 3% equity in a company for $1 million. And Mr. Wonderful said, I don't get out of bed for 5%. Because, that, but what you give me from what I'm bringing doesn't make any sense, So you have to understand your return on investment and what it's going to cost you to get to that return on investment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. How long does it typically take from start to finish to close on a deal?
If the appraisal come back like it should, 30 to 35 days. 30 to 35 days. If the appraisal doesn't come back like it should, hey, dude, I have a deal in the Poconos. It's a 2-unit property. And there are not a lot of 2-unit properties in the Poconos. The appraiser said it's difficult to find comparables. So it will be 8 weeks turn time. So I'm like, well, dude, if it's difficult to find, this is what I'm saying to myself. If it's difficult to find comparables, does it take 8 weeks to confirm that?
Are you going to wait for the? Are you going to wait?
What's going to happen in week 8 that you couldn't get done in week 1?
Right? Are you sitting around waiting for the next sale to happen? What's going on?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, you waiting for the next sale to happen? Like, dude, if you can't find it in week 1, what's going to be happening in week 8? Now you know about some sales that's coming to the market that you're waiting on, but that's some markets are worse than others. And like, so you have, to give you like Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, there's a lot of activity in that area, but you don't have a lot of appraisers. So appraisal turn times, they're like 3 weeks for residential appraisal. So, but it's just you have to understand the market, the activity of the market, the availability of professionals to get the deal, to get those valuations done. Because you're as an investor, you're competing with homeowners, people who are buying homes to live in, and those appraisals are simple. I'm talking to guys that do those types of loans, and they're like, "Oh, dude, I closed a loan in 10 days." I'm like, "Really? How you close a loan in 10 days?" "Oh, well, we had a streamlined process." Da da da. I said, "Okay, that's totally different." So They say that they can do that with the, I think, Fannie and Freddie, but they can't do it with HUD loans, take longer because there are other steps in HUD. But I wish I could close a loan in 10 days, but in today's market, it's not possible.
Right. I guess that loops into another question. SBA loans for short-term rentals, are people actually using those and are?
No, because SBA doesn't do residential. Small Business Administration doesn't do us for, you see, with SBA, you have to occupy 51% of the available rentable space. So that's, you can't do apartments. You can do hotels on SBA, but here's the, so I have a couple of boutique hotels that I'm working on and trying to figure out the best way to structure it, because when you're dealing with commercial, the value is based on income and expenses. And so if you're looking at a model where you're going to charge 3 or 4 times greater than what the market is allowing for everyone else, then it could work against you. For a given example, someone called me and they had a office that they building that they purchased, had about 30 units. And they said they got an appraisal back, and the appraiser, you know, lack of a better word, what they said, jacked them over because he felt that the value should have been like $1.5 million, and he came back like at 850. So I asked the person, so I said, do you have a copy of the appraisal? Because what I always do, I want to see, I got to compare apples to apples, because people can be emotional and the story, you know, they say 3 sides to a story. So I want to see what the appraisal look like. So, but he's like, well, I don't have it yet. I'm going through someone else. So I began to ask some basic questions. How much is your gross income on the property? Da, 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 da. And I said, what you think the cap rate would be? The person said like 18%. So I was like, okay, let's do a quick math. You got a calculator? Yeah. So if your gross income is this amount, so it's an older property, let's say 50% of that is your operating cost. So your net operating income would be 50% of that amount. So now that we know that, and we know that what you think it should be, so let's divide your cap rate into the net operating income. That would give you your value. And why the number we came up with was like $10,000 less or more, less than what the appraiser gave. I said, well, dude, you better go with that appraisal. You're looking for $800,000 more, it's not going to happen. So this individual thought that because the cap rate was in high 2 figures, like 18%, that was an indication that the property should be worth more. I like, no, it's a total opposite. I say, if you take half of that, go down to 9%, and divide it in that same number, look at the value on what you're going to come up with. So lower the cap rate, greater the value. Higher the cap rate, you're buying a property strictly for cash flow. So
makes sense. So before we start to get to the conclusion here, I just want to make sure nobody else has any additional questions. This has been extremely helpful and informative. Mark, is there something you can throw up on the screen if anyone is interested in getting in touch with you? Yeah, and something else I want to touch on, Rich, because I've heard people talk about this, and I want to help them to understand it. So you have, I get calls from individuals who are purchasing apartments. When I say apartments, a multi-family, not multi-units. We view multi-units as 2, 3, 4 unit properties. Mm-hmm. Multi-family, 5 doors or above, or 5 units or more, which are apartments. So if you're dealing with Fannie and Freddie on a case-by-case basis, Fannie and Freddie would give you a 5% variance. 5% of your available units could be on a short-term rental platform. So, but it's real difficult to get properties done. I'm sorry, Mark, could you please repeat that? The tail end of that? They only allow you to have 5%? 5%, up to 5%. So if I've got a 10-unit building, I'm only able to do 1 property? That's it. And that's Freddie and Fannie? Freddie and Fannie. And what's the reasoning behind that? Well, when you're dealing with commercial asset, dude, you're
your valuation is tied to income and expenses, and you're looking at market rent. So if you have a commercial appraisal, and you go in the breakdown that the appraiser is going to have, he or she would give you the indication what is the absorption rate for this property in this market. So it's 3% here in Sandy Springs, or over here in Roswell, it may be 5%. What is the average property management fee in this area? What we are seeing, 8%. You know, what is for a building of this age? What is the maintenance percentage for this? What is the replacement reserve for a building like? So what's the average that you're seeing in the marketplace? What is the market? See, it's what you have. Market rent, meaning that market rent represent what similar properties are renting for in that particular submarket.
Right. So we have some buildings like in Atlanta, obviously, where like 80% of the building is short-term rentals.
Yeah, but until it comes time, if say you purchase the property, and then at the time you purchased it, you didn't have short-term renters in it. You have regular long-term renters. But now you come to refinance it. Now you have to show your, because when you're dealing with Fannie and Freddie, the property need to be stabilized 90 days at 90%. Since COVID now, some of that has changed. So how can you show stabilized asset when you don't have a tenant in there long-term?
Right, but stabilized is, so I'm literally right now sitting in a 27-unit building that we have 8 units running short-term rentals on.
Okay.
And I've got, even through COVID, 95% occupancy.
For how long though?
On all 8 units.
For each tenant, but see, you don't have set tenants. You don't have long-term tenants.
I don't, but I got like, averaging 3.5 times what the typical market rate is.
Yeah, but what you have to look at from a risk standpoint. So if you were to default on that debt and I have to take it back, I'm not in a short-term rental business. So I have to pay a regular property manager to manage that asset. So if I overvalue that asset, then, and you default, if you always have to look at the what if you default on that asset, now I have a problem child on my hand because I overvalue that asset. Your asset is greater, you're getting more income than everybody else in the marketplace because of your strategy. That's great for you. That's what you're doing a great job, a wonderful job. But
so
it changes. Now I have seen capital partners that would do refinances on short-term rentals, but you that are multifamily, but you have to have 2 years of operating income and expenses. And when they work the formula out, they will make sure that the risk factor on it is minimized from a lending standpoint.
Interesting. All right, so we got some challenges ahead on multifamily then, it looks like.
And yep, just because it's how how you're calculating, how you look at the income, dude. It's all about income and expenses and mitigating risk. So just keep that in mind. And there are other ways I've seen, I can share with you, we can have a conversation. I can share with you how I've seen other investors circumvent that situation. So I can talk to you about that offline.
All right, that sounds good. And, it's just kind of confusing if you've actually got more than a year of actual liquidation history that is direct, in such a positive way that they still may not recognize it.
But look at it this way, okay? Say I have a multifamily, I have an apartment building, say 50-unit building that was built in the 1980s, okay? And the landlord pays all utilities. So now, based on the landlord paying all utilities, my operating cost of that property is going to be a little bit higher. Operating expenses are going to be higher. So say you're operated at 50% or 60, we just say 50%. But when you, the owner, do your income and expenses, you're saying I'm operating at 30%. But when the lender looks at it, they're saying, oh, based on the numbers and the appraisal that we're getting back, operating expense of the property is going to be at 50%. So regardless, even if you have long-term tenants in it, that may cause some headache for getting that deal done.
Got it.
So when you're moving into that space from the 1 through 4, just try to understand how the market is looking at that particular asset from, from an income and expense standpoint. Because looking at it, evaluating a commercial asset is totally different methodology than when you're looking at 1 through 4.
Makes sense. So how can folks get in touch with you, Mark?
Well, I'm trying to find my contact page here, Rich. I normally don't come on the website.
I can throw it in the chat if you want.
Hey, here it is right here.
Okay.
You can visit the website. We try to make it very user friendly. We love doing SBA loans. I think SBA and USDA commercial loans are some of the best in the marketplace. Could give you the highest leverage, up to 90% LTV. That's really good. But keep in mind, your business must occupy 51% of the available rentable space. And they also have construction loans, renovation loans, and you can, if you're opening a restaurant, you can throw in your equipment, you can get working capital, you can get money for advertising. So it's a really good product, really, really good product. And it's, I've done a loan for someone with a 600 credit score. When we started, they had like a 578, and we had to do I actually didn't know this existed. The lender told me, say, hey, Mark, have them do Experience Boost. I'm like, what is that? And we did Experience Boost, dude, and like it pushed their credit like 30 points when they did it. So it allowed us to get the loan done.
Nice. What was the interest rate on that one?
It was prime plus, I think we're like 6%, somewhere in there.
Okay, still workable.
Oh yeah. That's really good. Really, really good. So to get in contact with me, you can shoot me an email at info@cramcapital.com, or you can call the office at 470-447-2077. So if you have a question about a deal, how to structure your deal, we like for you to understand what you're doing, what you're getting into when we're helping you do a deal. And if you talk to me about a deal, just be totally transparent. Give me the opportunity to say, no, I can't help you.
Perfect. Well, this has been great, Mark. Thanks so much for the time today. It's very good information for us to help grow our business. And thanks everyone for jumping on, and we will see you guys next month, the first Tuesday of the month. And we look forward to seeing everybody then. But thanks again, everybody. Have a good one.